Now I want to go to Mr. Boyko Nitzov. He's the team leader for gas infrastructure development, ACER, and I want to know, Mr. Nitzov, view about financing regional interconnections. Thank you.
Yes, I've prepared a presentation on the topic, but first, Radu and Vitaly, can I ask you something? Just keep me out of this dispute where oil was first produced, whether in Romania or in Azerbaijan, will you?
We know that it was in Romania. So.
I love to be at Bucharest, and I love to be in Baku, so please.
Thank you.
All right. If there's anyone who I know of and has actually handled multi-billion-dollar investments in all parts of the chain of the oil and gas industry, that's SOCAR. Maybe there are others, but we have to carefully listen to a major investor when we talk about the importance of prices, the importance of other elements in investing. So I tend to completely agree with what was just stated by Mr. Berebarev. The importance of not looking at prices is just one of the elements. You have to account for it, but it is far more important to look at the terms of investing. And those are the legal aspects, those are regulatory aspects, those are market access rules, those are the terms of transportation, the freedom of transit, which was mentioned, which is governed by various documents of the Energy Charter and also the European Union. So I tend to really invite everybody in the audience to pay close attention to what was just stated here. It is important. I also tend to kind of invite you to consider that there are ways to finance the construction of major infrastructure of cross-border impact in Europe, and I'll touch on one of those ways, not all of them. It was also mentioned in the statement, in the presentation just now. That is instruments available to project promoters to fund their projects. I don't know where the control of this thing is.
We need the control? Okay, we'll find it. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me now after the noise?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. All right. The first thing is how much infrastructure you really need. So there is this thing called the 10-year network development plan. It's part of what is known the third energy package. It is prepared on a biannual basis every second year by the European Union, if you will, of transmission system operators, ENTSOC for gas. The last one, which was developed 2 years ago, was updated and is available now. It looks forward 10 years. Right now it contains more than 300 projects of all kinds. And these are pipelines, these are LNG terminals, these are underground gas storages. You can imagine what kind of volume of investment we talk about. The investment is not limited to regulated infrastructure. Basically, infrastructure in Europe falls in two categories, regulated projects and unregulated projects. In many instances, particularly in LNG and also underground gas storage, the projects are not regulated. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Do the environmental impact assessment, file for a permit, do the business plan, find the money, go ahead. It's not subject to tariff regulation or anything like this. Once a project is part of the 10-year network development plan, and some projects put forward by SOCAR are, then you can go to the next stage and apply for the status of a project of common interest. Right now, the second list of projects of common interest is under development. It's expected to be adopted sometime in the fall. It will contain, the first one contained 104 projects worth 70 billion approximately. And so the current one would probably contain a little bit less. I don't know, the decision is yet to be taken, with the approximate volume of investment that will have to go for these projects to be implemented on the same scale. These projects of common interest have a particular feature. They have to have a cross-border impact. They do not have to be located on the territory of two countries or more. But once implemented, so the impact of the project must be felt in another country. And that another country, the TSO of that country, the national regulatory agency, the government which is involved in issuing the permits, the offices, they have to agree that there is a cross-border impact. And they have to look at it. The way to do this is once a project is considered to be sufficiently mature, and we as an agency have put forward a very detailed explanation what a mature project means. Once a project of common interest reaches that stage, the project promoter must file an investment request to the NRAs of all impacted countries, not just where the project is located. All impacted countries, where there's a significant impact. And we have also defined what significant impact means. The way to calculate the impact is to do a cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis is done by a methodology developed by ANSOC and also reviewed by the agency. We have put forward an opinion how the cost-benefit analysis could be improved. Another element which must be put forward in the investment request is a business plan and a cross-border cost allocation decision, if applicable, which means that the project promoter must state that country, the TSO of that country, shall carry that much of the costs, and I will carry on my side that much of the cost. This has to be approved by the NRAs jointly, and if they fail to do this within 6 months, then the case is submitted to the agency. The agency takes within 3 months a decision on the same case. So far, the agency has taken 2 such decisions. One is for a gas project, another one is for an electricity project. There are about 20 investment requests which have been filed so far out of those 104 projects which I mentioned. All right. And once you have the decision in your hand, the next stage is to go to the NRAs, back to the NRAs and say, okay, fine. Now please include the cost of the investment in the tariffs, if it is a regulated investment. If you're not applying for a regulated investment, this is not applicable. Right? But if you don't see that the tariffs support your investment, then you may turn around because the decision makes you eligible for European funding support. So you have to have it in your hand, the cross-border cost allocation decision. And with that, you can apply for European funding, primarily through the Connect Europe facility, CEF. The agency doesn't have anything to do with CEF. Basically, it's a project run in Brussels, but everything before that is very much watched and also under certain circumstances when the NRAs cannot agree, also decided on by the agency. So that's and how does it help this priority again? Going back to the issue, what is the difference between the approach, let us say, of one supplier and another potential supplier? I appreciate very much the statement which was just made a few minutes ago again by Vitaly, that they respect the terms and conditions of the European market and also governed by the regulations on those markets. This is not the case for all suppliers. There are suppliers who insist on special terms and conditions. The likelihood of this happening is relatively low, I would say, at least. The next is just to give you an idea what kind of money we're talking about. And also, if we, again, visit reality, Over the last 10 years, I'll give you a number. The number is due to be published soon because the agency carried out the review of the implementation of projects of common interest. Next week, probably, it will be released. I don't know. But the annual volume of investment in regulated infrastructure in Europe has never exceeded approximately, in gas, 4 billion per year. And typically it's about 1.5. Over the last 2 years, since the adoption of the last PCI until today, 2 PCI projects have been commissioned. And there are 104 on the list. So you would expect that, well, there would be some priority set there. The funding from European sources is heavily competed for. Everybody has some ideas that, well, the project is unique and so on, etc. Prove it. Do the analysis, get to the maturity level as prescribed by the agency, as recommended by the agency. We cannot prescribe, but as required by the regulations. File the investment request with the supporting documents, and then you will be in a competition for funding. The funding is limited and it is last resort. There are other ways to fund the project. The primary one is to include the cost in the tariffs for final users in that country. And if that happens, everything is clear and there's no lack of funds available for this. Project promoters are strongly advised usually by the agency and by everybody who participates in the PCI selection process to just follow the legal procedures, pay attention to what has to be developed at what point of time, go through the hula hoops, be listened to. It also requires agreements of several countries, at least 2. And I again stress this point. So the markets that we're talking about here in Romania, the neighboring countries, are relatively small without cross-border cost cooperation. Without cross-border cooperation for the implementation of cross-border investments, it would be nearly impossible to move forward. That's how the expectations run. That's the planning and development structure which I just described. These are the projects of common interest and the specific criteria which must be assessed by the cost-benefit analysis and monetized. Put euros. If you talk about market integration, price convergence, what is the benefit there? There must be net benefit. Otherwise, the project is not worth implementing. The financeability of the project depends on proving that it is beneficial. Security of supply, tell me how much you gain in security. Sustainability, how much? Competition, diversification, that's for gas only, by the way. These are the priority corridors, and you can see that the Southern Gas Corridor is pretty broad. It includes almost all Europe except the Iberian Peninsula, and then the Northwest and so the Baltics. And it contains about 50% of the projects by value, expected investment, but not by number. So the projects here tend to be very large. Why they tend to be very large, I explained about half an hour ago. The problems that we see there and how we resolve that, so you can find this recommendation on our website, recommendation 7/2013. The importance of cost-benefit analysis, which I just described, how we treat the promoters' submissions, it's very pragmatic. And the consistent information which regulators require from project promoters. Please pay attention to this slide. I will leave these slides for you so that you have a record what I'm telling you, not just discussions. The evidence of maturity, what maturity means, the investment decision, preliminary and so on, etc., technical, technological description, the implementation plan, the evidence of consultation, cross-border consultation of all TSOs which are involved, a project-specific cost-benefit analysis, and then the cash flow analysis, the business plan, and so on, etc., and the CBCA proposal. Our approach to costs is to look at each cost element. To benefits, it is those 4 criteria monetized. This is our approach to maturity of the projects. This is when we state to project promoters, okay, you've reached the stage when you're good enough to file an investment request, but not before that. If you come before that, it would likely be thrown out of the door, and you would not go through the steps that lead to eligibility for funding. You will not be able to go to the decision which either states, okay, the cost shall be included in tariffs, or, well, the tariffs are very high, so we need additional funding, which may be from European sources or some other sources. This is the approach to compensations. Now, the impact may differ in different countries. Some countries may be in a position, the project is implemented by them, but the benefit is elsewhere. Somebody else benefits from a project which is done in country A, country B benefits. In these instances, country B, the TSO of that country, should compensate the TSO of country A for the cost of the project, if the project demonstrates overall benefits, net benefits. All right, so these are the approaches to contributions. These are a couple of examples that we provide in the analysis, in the recommendation, how compensation should work. In this instance, the benefiting country is B, and the losing country, net cost country, is country A. So country B should compensate country A, and the project should still be beneficial for both of them. This is the enabling of cross-border projects. Several countries. It is possible. A decision of the agency was made precisely on such a case. It is public decision. It is on the website. You go there and read the justification and how it was handled. Now the recommendation is being revised. You can see what elements are being revised, and I'm going to show you the most important slide, which is like this. I'm sorry about that, but I have to do it. We're a public entity. And with this, I would stress again the importance of working with the project promoters to make sure that the financeability of the project is done in the proper way. We help. There was somebody stating yesterday, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, and that's a very dangerous statement, all right? I'm not from the government. ACER is not the government. ACER is an independent body of the European regulators. With this, again, I thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you very much.